whatever other you require. I have had some apologies. I've also got some intimations of running late, but I do wish to get started as soon as we can, please. It's practical. Okay, before we start the meeting, our housekeeping, can I remind you all, please, to make sure your phones are on silent or preferably off. There are no fire alarms planned this evening, so in the event of a fire and alarm sounding, you are to treat it as an alarm, and please make your way out of the room following the members of staff to our safe evacuation point, which is on Southern Hay Green at the Blitz Tree. Please, when we are discussing matters this evening, remain focused on the topic being discussed. Questions should be direct and specific to the item of business being discussed, and please try and avoid repeating points which have already been made. Please, as you are speaking, respect other members of this committee and the position of the chair. Thank you. I'm moving on to our item number 1, which is apologies. So the apologies received so far from Councillor Bennett, Councillor Hussain and Councillor Ketchin. And I understand that Councillor Hughes and Councillor Ralston have encountered traffic difficulties and will be joining us as soon as possible. Right, agenda item 2, the minutes of the last meeting that we have, which is the Monday the 13th of January. Those have been circulated to you and you've had an opportunity to look at them. Does anybody have any points of clarification or alterations to the minutes? All right, I can't see any, so therefore I ask if I can put those into the record. Can I have a quick show of hands that you accept those minutes? Thank you very much.
Yep.
Councillor Hughes, welcome.
It was unanimous.
All right, so I will sign those a bit later on. Give you a moment to get settled.
Please, Chair.
Here comes the poll. Okay, we're on to item number 3, which is the declarations of interest. Councillors are reminded of the need to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests that relate to the business on the agenda. And so I'm asking, I know I've had an indication from Councillor Zvachin that for agenda item number 6, you are recusing yourselves and will leave when we get to that point of the agenda. We will call you back in order to be able to speak under standing orders. Right, agenda item number 4, our exclusion of the press and public. Under this, I see no reason to go into part 2, and so have no reason to ask for your permission to exclude public and press. And we are now moving, therefore, on to our agenda item 5. I am just going to ask if we can pause for a couple of moments to see if Councillor Ralston can get here before we start. Otherwise, you'll be precluded from taking part in this first item.
Chair, may I ask a question? Being a member of the sports centre doesn't count.
No, absolutely not. No, that's the membership of any club is not. If you are on the committee, as a consequence of that, then I would be concerned. But otherwise, no thought to that at all.
Thank you.
I'm afraid no sign of Councillor Ralston, so I'm afraid we will commence with item number 5 on the agenda. This is application 250022 VOC, a variation of condition on lands southwest of Legacy. Can I have the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. So this application is a variation of condition application to change the approved 40 dwelling scheme from the policy compliant 35% affordable housing to 100% affordable housing development. This alteration will also require changes to the Section 106 agreement. And as part of this, the council's constitution states that when minor variations to Section 106 agreement, sorry, to start again with that. The council's constitution states that minor variations to Section 106 agreements can be delegated to the head of city development. In this instance, the change was not considered to be minor and has therefore been brought to the planning committee for a decision. As this is a variation of condition application, only the material changes being generated by the alteration can be considered. So the principle of this and the layout of the site itself is already approved. The existing scheme provided policy compliant 35% affordable housing. There is a significant demand for this type of housing, and the increase to 100% is therefore welcomed. Core strategy policy CP7 states some preferred tenure splits of 70% social rent and 30% intermediate housing. This proposed change will see this being 55% social rent and 45% intermediate housing. However, the policy does allow for variations on this tenure split. And in this instance, the overall number of each type of housing would be increased and is therefore on balance acceptable. The exact numbers are set out in the report. The proposed tenure plan would be revised to accommodate this change, and the layout of it is considered to be acceptable. As part of this change, it was necessary to examine the potential material impacts of a switch to 100% affordable housing. Community infrastructure levy is charged on market dwellings, and affordable housing dwellings are normally exempt from this. And it was therefore necessary to understand if the loss of the SIL money would be a material planning consideration. Following a careful review of case law, as detailed in the report, SIL is only a material consideration if there is a project that is directly funded by that money and that is necessary to make the scheme acceptable. There's no such projects in relation to this development, and therefore the loss of the SIL payments is not a material impact of this application. The Section 106 agreement would be updated to allow for the increase in affordable housing. The current one states a 35% affordable housing level, and it will be altered to say a minimum of 35%. This is to do with the mechanism for the funding, which is why it doesn't say 100% in the legal agreement. But the level of 100% would be secured still through the plan that is on the screen, which would be one of the approved plans, which states the tenure of each house. Any change from this would require a further planning application. There are some other alterations to the Section 106 agreement that are set out in the report. Probably the most relevant one is the change to the responsibility of public open space maintenance, where it currently would be the responsibility of a private management company. However, it's proposed to alter this to allow the affordable housing provider to cover it. And this would prevent the need for service charge contributions from each dwelling, and is accepted as a reasonable way of managing this. The proposal is therefore recommended to the committee for approval, with the increase in affordable housing providing dwellings of an in-demand type, and is put forward and recommended for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm now asking members for questions to the officer relating to the presentation. Councillor Hughes, are you asking for?
Yeah, I just want to.
So you were first then? Right. Okay. So Councillor Mitchell.
2 points of clarification. One, I think I know the answer to, but I just want it confirmed in public, that where this developer is going for 100% on this site, that only relates to this site, and any other developer in our area from that developer, he cannot carry forward arrangements from one site across to another. They can't be balanced out. That's the first question.
No, they wouldn't be able to. It would solely relate to this site.
Thank you. That would be my understanding as well. And secondly, in regard to the housing, have we any control as a planning authority on whether the people residing in these properties have any relationship to Exeter?
So the Section 106 agreement states that occupants would be selected through the Devon Home Choice system with it. So it would all be, there is an element of control over it.
Thank you. Councillor Pole.
So I'm right that this is the same number of houses as in the previous planning permission that was granted. And then also, could you just, I think the layout has changed, but I got the sense, it may have just been the colours, but I got the sense that the layout has changed. And I just wondered if it had and why it would have changed if there had been a change in layout.
So there's been no change to the layout of the site at all. The only change is the tenure of the housing itself. So where it was open market housing, it's now affordable housing instead. But there's no alterations to any other part of the scheme apart from that.
Councillor Jobson.
Thank you. Just for clarification, all applicants will come through the Devon Home Choice Scheme, because I understand it now, they will not necessarily be people who have not yet been allocated on Devon Home's Choice. They could now be people looking for a housing swap for some reason or another. Is that right?
I'm not too sure about that myself. It may be that the speaker from Live West can offer more clarification on that in a minute.
Thank you, Chair. And just a point of clarification. So you said that the open space has been changed so that it will now be managed by the affordable housing provider. Just want some clarity around whether you've had talks with the affordable housing provider and that's something that they deem as acceptable, and if that's pretty normal in these circumstances. Thank you.
It was put forward by them as a way of dealing with the open space sensibly, rather than having to pay money for another company to manage it when they've got the ability to do so themselves. There is also a condition on the original decision that still stands, where we have a landscape management plan and long-term maintenance and objectives for it. So there's additional things to make sure that the landscaping and the public open space is maintained effectively.
Right, I'm seeing no others, so I suggest we move on to our speakers. We have nobody to speak against. We do, however, have a supporter. That's Mr. Gareth Jones on behalf of Live West. Mr. Jones, if you'd like to approach, please. Right, Mr. Jones, make yourself comfortable, and when you're ready, you press your button and you start speaking. As with all public speakers, you'll have 3 minutes for us. Okay.
Before I start speaking, though, I'd just like to say I've got something of a cold, so if I cough, I do apologise. But I'll try not to.
Would you like a glass of water?
No, I'm all right, thank you. I've had a strep. We'll give it a go. Right, press the button. Good evening, Chair and everyone. I'm Gareth Jones. I'm speaking on behalf of Live West, the housing association that wants to deliver the housing at Blakesley Drive. We already own and manage approximately 1,000 affordable homes in the city, and we have an active development pipeline of affordable homes in Exeter. I'm speaking in support of this revised application, which would allow the delivery of 40 additional affordable homes in Newcourt, an area where we already own and manage homes for rent and shared ownership, so the similar tenure types. When Persimmon Homes approached Live West with the opportunity to acquire 40 new affordable homes on this site, we were keen to secure the opportunity because of the housing need in the city. Conditional terms have been agreed between Live West and Persimmon, which will see all the homes provided as 100% affordable, should this application for revised planning find favour with the committee. The revisions as relevant to the application, which I would highlight and are as follows: to remove the requirement for first homes, to remove the lower limit on affordable home delivery, and to change the mortgagee in possession clause within the Section 106. There are also changes to landscape management and a new layout plan, as the planning officer has highlighted. Whilst previous iterations of the National Planning Policy Framework, or NPPF, required a fixed percentage of first homes to be included within a housing scheme, the latest revisions approved in December last year removed this requirement. Homes England, our funding agency, will not provide grant funding to support the delivery of first homes. So without its removal as a category of permitted homes, we would not be able to provide the social rented homes proposed. The revised NPPF places a renewed emphasis on the delivery of social rent, a significant benefit for the city in our opinion, and our proposals are in line with the most up-to-date NPPF guidance. We need to remove the lower limit on the delivery of affordable housing. This is because of recent case law that has significant implications for schemes seeking to deliver 100% affordable housing through a combination of Section 106 and grant-funded additionality. As such, the application seeks to vary the Section 106 to a state of minimum affordable provision rather than an absolute number in order to enable all the homes, as intended by Live West, with the support of grant funding, to be delivered as affordable housing. The proposed update to the mortgagee in possession clause seeks to replace the clause to an industry standard clause, which has been approved by the National Housing Federation. This is to aid the loan funding that can be secured against the homes and which will aid the provision of future homes. I trust the above provides you with the clarity supplemental to what the planning officer has spoken to. The other changes are as laid out. I hope the committee is able to agree to the planning officer's report in supporting this application to revise the consent. Oh, yes.
Right, thank you, Mr. Jones. Right, I now invite questions from members. I'm going to start off with Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, thank you, Live West, for the work that you do in our city. It is appreciated by some of us. Just a quick point of clarification, if you don't mind, about the first homes removal. Will that enable overcrowded families to be prioritised into more suitable accommodation? Is there anything you can do about that? So I'm thinking in terms of families that perhaps are in a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 or 4 children. Could they be prioritised in any way? Is that an option? Have I just asked for utopia?
Well, I should start by saying that I don't come from the housing management side. Oh, sorry. Yes, I don't come from the housing management side of the business, but our normal working practice would be to work proactively through Devon Home Choice to obviously prioritise for the homes for those in priority housing need, suitable to the accommodation being offered.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Really, 2 points for clarification. We often hear from other social providers there's a difficulty in capital at the moment, raising capital, or from housing corp, various government bodies, etc. You seem to give an assurance in your introduction that funding this project is not an issue. The money is already there. So could you please outline and confirm that is in place? Because I think that would be helpful reassurance for residents of Exeter that it is actually physically going to take place.
By all means, I'm very happy to clarify that. Live West is what's known as a strategic funding partner with Homes England, and we have secured funds with them of just under 124 million to provide homes up to 2028. So actually, those funds are secured and allocated. So bringing forward these 40 homes in Exeter means that we'll be able to bring some benefit of that funding directly into the city. And those are secured funds.
Thank you. And the second point is, are you the balance between social rent and affordable? for those people living in them, it can be quite significant in the amount of rent they're paying.
Yes.
So is it likely that your model will lead you to reconstruct the balance between the two elements, so we end up with largely affordable and very little social, rather than more social and less affordable?
Well, to be clear, our proposal is to deliver the rented homes as social rented homes, and that's what we've got funding to deliver in the city. So we're not looking to deliver them as affordable rented; they will be social rented. I know sometimes it gets confusing because it's all affordable housing, but we're very proud actually, because last year I think that nationally we were the 4th largest deliverer of social housing across the country. So we know it's a priority for the city.
Just to clarify then, it's 100% social rent property.
No, it's not. No. The proposals for the site councillor are that all 40 homes are brought forward as affordable housing, and of those, 22 will be for social rent and 18 will be for shared ownership. But that's in contrast to the current situation, which would only see 35% of the total site come forward for affordable housing.
Just to clarify, so affordable from your perspective is 80% of market rent? No?
No. No. Of those, so of the 40 homes, 22 will be for rent, and they will be specifically for social rent, which is normally about 60% of market value. It is the most affordable form of affordable rented housing, but it's not to be confused with affordable rent, which is the 80% of market rent. That's all right.
That's all right.
Councillor Atkins.
So on the shared ownership, I wasn't quite following the mortgage answer that you gave in your speech. Does that mean is there anything to do with the shared ownership who get mortgage on their percentage of it if they default or something, or is it in response to your own borrowing? I wasn't quite sure.
No, the reference to mortgages specifically to the technical provisions in the section 106 around a mortgagee being in possession, and the way that we secure private funding from banks is often determined by the way that clause is written. So we want some technical changes to that clause in line with what the National Housing Federation recommend to allow us to maximise funding. But it's not relevant to the shared owners.
Do I have any more questions, please? No? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Jones. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Right. Do you wish to make a summary? No, I think we will move to debate, please. Can I ask for any contributions to the debate? Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, just to say that I have a high regard for Live West as a housing provider, and I will be voting in favour of this. I think I'm really pleased actually to hear this, and I'm really pleased to hear that it's Live West bringing it forward. So yeah, not debate, just yay.
Anybody else, please? Councillor Atkins.
Oh yeah, what's not to like about this? I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, and I share that everything that Councillor Hughes has said about Live West, who are our neighbours after all. And yeah, it's absolutely brilliant news for the city, and it's nice that we can. I will be voting for this. Let's put it that way.
Thank you. Do I have any other contributions from members? No, lacking other contributions, I would like to move the motion that we accept the recommendation of the officer. Can we have the recommendation in front of us, please? That we grant permission subject to the conditions as outlined. Can I please have a vote of those in favour? Sorry, I need a second. Sorry, Councillor Mitchell. Thank you very much indeed. Apologies. An indication of those in favour, please. Okay,
That is unanimous, Chair.
seeing unanimous as well. Thank you very much indeed, members. All right, for item number 6, Councillor Asvashin, I must ask you to leave the room. Thank you very much. You will be escorted from the premises. And Councillor Rolson, you can join us. I'm sorry we did try and wait for as long as possible. Horrible traffic, I understand.
Sorry,
All right, thank you, members. If I could bring you to order, please. All right, we're moving on to item number 6. This is planning application 241396 ECC, Wamford Community and Learning Centre in Burnt House Lane. And I would like to hear the presentation of the officer.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. This application was submitted by ourselves, Exeter City Council. It affects the Wamford Community and Learning Centre in Priory Ward. And the proposal is to refurbish the existing sports centre and community and learning centre, including demolition of the existing gym, Phoenix Centre and outdoor changing rooms, and to construct a new hub and FA changing facilities. And the new hub will accommodate a cafe area, changing facilities, a studio and a gym. And the upcoming slide should show you where those things are a little bit more clearly. Just to say, the case officer is Joran Malin, who is on leave, and I am presenting on his behalf this evening. So this slide just gives the general location and context. As you can see, the sports centre sits next to the Lidl supermarket and is adjacent to Ludwell Valley Park. This was the location plan submitted with the application, which outlines the actual site in red and the adjoining land that belongs to the applicant, i.e. ourselves, outlined in blue. And this is a standard aerial view that we will often include in our presentations. If you're not familiar with the existing building, here are some photos of it. As you can see, it is in not a great condition, and I think of note, it includes very little in the way of outdoor doors or windows, and it can be a little bit confusing or illegible, as we will say, in terms of where the existing entrance is. And here are some more photos, these ones taken at the back of the site, presenting onto the existing sports pitches within Ludwell Valley Park. And this is a three-dimensional view. This is one of the proposed plans submitted with the application, showing the extent of the demolition. So essentially, the existing building is in 3 parts, and the centre part of the building will be demolished, whilst retaining the existing sports hall on the left-hand side of this plan and the existing community hall, which is on the right-hand side. And this plan shows the extent of the demolition at ground floor level. It also includes the removal of 1 tree, which is of poor quality, near to the existing site entrance. This plan is the proposed site layout, showing the roof layout, so showing a new building proposed in the middle of the site, linking the 2 existing buildings. It also shows some rearranged parking, with the disabled parking spaces moved closer to the existing entrance as a result of comments from our urban design officer, as well as a raised table crossing at the entrance to the site to help slow down traffic and demonstrate that the site is focused on pedestrian movement instead of vehicles. This is the existing ground floor plan. Unfortunately, the pointer doesn't work, but there'll be a new gym at the top of the site, which is shaded in that purpley colour. The cafe will be located to the south, next to the existing sports pitches in Ludwell Valley Park. There'll be a new studio provided in the middle of the building there. The new FA football changing rooms are provided just to the south of the existing sports hall on the left-hand side of this slide. And this is the plan showing the mezzanine level. These are the proposed elevations that were submitted with the application. These show the new building in the centre. At the moment, the existing building is constructed entirely from red brick. So to enliven the building a little bit more, different material is proposed for the new building in the centre, of a light coloured cladding to give it some variety and visual interest. And these are the other elevations showing the rear of the building with a large area of glazing where the cafe will be, providing some life and activity on this side of the site. And this is the proposed landscape plan. We do have a condition requiring a detailed landscaping plan, so this is fairly indicative, but shows some areas of new shrub planting and new tree planting in the new spaces around the site. And we have some nice three-dimensional visuals that were submitted with the application as well to give you a clear idea of what the proposal will look like. This one's showing the new entrance on the left-hand side of the new building, which will be far more legible and easier to locate for the local community. This one's showing the other side of the building. And some more visuals to finish with here. So as you'll see from the case officer's committee report, there are a number of benefits with the proposal that we see, including the regeneration enhancement of the existing facility, maximising its potential as a community hub, promotes well-being and healthy lifestyles through its new sports facilities, and hopefully it will act as a community hub, bringing the local community together in this new building. There are no harms that we have identified that can't be mitigated via condition. Therefore, the recommendation of your officers is to grant planning permission with the conditions that are included on the additional information update sheet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I invite questions. Councillor Mitchell, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Mitchell first, please.
Two questions, please. In relation to this application, could you clarify whether it's outline or full? Because that's usually in the coding, and the coding just says EEC at the end, but normally it says either outline or full. So could that be clarified? The second point is in regard to paragraph 9 in your report, which is sustainable construction and energy conservation. I can see how fully in the description it says it meets CP15. There's no mention, and I can't clearly see it in the plan, but you might, whether there's any attempt for solar panels on any of these buildings, and whether anything's being done in regard to heat pumps or energy regeneration on the site to make it more carbon neutral.
Thank you, Councillor. It is a full application. In terms of the energy efficiency measures, there are existing PV panels on the roof, and there will be additional PV panels provided. At the moment, as I understand, there are existing gas boilers in the building, and they are not too old, so the idea is to retain those, but to do various other internal improvements to make the sort of thermal dynamics of the building more efficient. I think the idea is to design it so that it could be connected to the local energy network in future, to build in that resilience. But at the moment, that isn't proposed. At the moment, it's something that could come in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick point of clarification and then a question, if I may, Chair. I'm just looking at the illustrative view, and I hope I know the answer to this, but in the interest of transparency, I'm going to ask the question. That isn't the exact number of disabled bays that you're planning to have, is it? Or is it? Is this just a, no, we'll just put some for illustrative purposes?
Well, this is an illustrative image, so this wouldn't be technically an approved plan, but the submitted layout plan does show the number of disabled parking spaces. I have to click to that plan to confirm the number. So according to this site layout plan, that's correct, Chair. Oh, hang on. No, that's not correct. There's 5.
Thank you for clarifying that. My question relates to paragraph 2. Towards the end, the police designing out crime officer welcome the integration, that bit there. It says the recommendations are not essential to justify the approval of this development and have therefore not been included as planning conditions. My question is, why not just include them anyway? Because this, as we are told, even in the documentation we've been given this evening, this is an area where antisocial behaviour has been a challenge. And if the police designing out crime officer is suggesting additional recommendations to make this a safer area in terms of antisocial behaviour and potential crime, I'm wondering why we have chosen to not include those as planning conditions. Now, it might be because we can't because of some legal stuff, but I would like you to just explain that to me if you don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the designing out crime officer's actual comments in front of me because my laptop wouldn't work in this room this evening. From memory, they include CCTV. I think they included things like having square drain pipes as opposed to circular ones, so that people couldn't climb up onto the roof quite so easily, as well as having flush doors as opposed to recessed doors and that sort of thing. I, off the top of my head, can't think why the case officer hasn't conditioned that, so I wouldn't think there'd be any harm in adding a condition to have those details if members wanted it.
Thank you.
Councillor Patrick.
Just to say that the Wi-Fi is restored in here, by the way, if that helps, because I've been fighting with it since I got in. And I'm really sorry if I've missed this, and if I have, yeah, many apologies. But sports pitches, is there any sort of detail on what sports pitches we're having, or is that separate because that's not included in there?
No, the sports pictures aren't included in this application.
Okay, that's fine. So make sure I haven't missed anything. Thank you.
Councillor Paul.
So I'm just visualising the ISCA Centre and the graffiti, and I just wonder what is the I just worry with the replacement of the red brick that we might be a little bit prone to that, and wonder if there's been any mitigation of that in the plan.
Again, I believe it was an issue raised by the police designing out crime officer. I wouldn't recommend changing the material. I think visually there are benefits to changing the material of the centre building from red brick to basically make the building look a lot nicer. However, if members are minded to add a condition to recommend following the recommendations of the police designing out crime officer, then that hopefully should cover concerns about graffiti.
Councillor Banyard?
Are there any guidelines about how many EV charging points a car park of this size ought to have? And do we think that one double electric charging point is enough for a development like this? And would there be any scope for asking for more?
So our current policies and our development plan and our sustainable transport SPD don't include the number of EV charging points that should be provided in terms of the number of spaces. So we do encourage it, and I would say for most schemes such as this, 2 isn't unusual. There is a condition requiring provision of the EV spaces, and I'd have to check the wording to see if there was scope to increase it.
2 spaces.
So yeah, I think the reason it secures 2 spaces is because that is what has been set out in the application. And because we don't have a specific policy where we could ask for more, I don't think we'd be justified to ask for more, but it's something we could offline, if you want, talk with our colleagues to see if more could be provided.
Councillor Paul? Sorry. My apologies, Councillor Ross, I'm looking at the wrong thing.
I'll let them. I don't mind being mistaken for councillor. Again, might just be my eyes, because my optician tells me they are of a certain age, and I can't zoom in very well. But is there any provision? So the football FA changing rooms, which are the ones that are accessible sort of all the time, aren't they? That the idea of that. Is there a accessible changing room as part of that? Because I can't see it on the plan, and not just an accessible toilet, but an actual accessible changing room.
I strongly suspect there is, having dealt with similar schemes of this like this in the past, but I can't confirm that here and now because I don't have access to the plans, unfortunately. So I'd have to come back to you on that, I'm afraid.
Councillor and then Councillor Polly.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back to the police designing out crime officer and some of the points they raised, very helpfully prompted by Councillor Hughes. In it, they've said they suggested including consideration of removing outdoor cafe seating when not in use to prevent unwanted congregation. And I just wanted to clarify whether there was, if we did decide to put that as a condition as part of all of the measures they've suggested, whether there'd be any concern around then the viability of the cafe, whether that'd have any knock-on implications, I'm not sure. And the other point they make is defining the northern space with appropriate boundary treatment to deter misuse. Could you just clarify, what does that actually mean? Thank you.
So the boundary treatment, I think, unfortunately, I did read the police designing out crime officer's comments on the train coming in. He was recommending effectively a guardrail to just indicate the boundary of the existing building, which is basically good urban design to indicate what is public or private space, and it encourages a sense of ownership and so on. So that's something that would be picked up through the detailed landscaping condition. In terms of, I can't really answer the comment about the viability of the cafe in terms of whether the seating is brought indoors or not. I wouldn't have thought it was going to be a major issue, to be honest.
Thank you, Councillor Paul.
So I've got another couple of questions. Yeah, so can I just clarify that the car park is the same footprint rather than sort of changing the footprint of the car park? And then also just about the actual improvements to the sports hub facilities, like how much, it says it's going to be more inclusive, but I'm just sort of slightly concerned about women's sport and whether is it sort of, what assessment has been made to make sure that it's going to serve men and women and sort of is there any more information about what that inclusiveness involves?
The footprint of the car park is remaining the same, and the number of car parking spaces is remaining the same. Yeah, I can't provide any information on the proposals that would encourage inclusiveness as part of this scheme, I'm afraid.
Right, thank you. Do I have anybody else? No. Okay, in that case, we're going to be moving on to public forum statements. I think it's councillor speaking under standing orders first. So if we can retrieve Councillor Spashin from the sin bin.
No, for purposes of this, because she's reclusing herself as a trustee, she's not part of the meeting at all. And I just want him to be able to speak.
She got red card then.
Greetings, Councillor Spashin. As I'm sure you're aware, speaking under Standing Order 44, you are entitled to as much time as you wish. However, I would ask you to be as concise and precise as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm really pleased to be sat here today, many years and several consultations down the line, with a final plan for the Watford Hub, which you've just been looking at. As the Chair of Trustees for the Watford Community Centre, a resident and local councillor, I've been using the facility for quite a few years now and have come to understand just how important it is for the residents it serves. We run a wide variety of clubs and activities, including bingo, mobile arties, a walking group, boogie bounce, kids martial arts, to name but a few, as well as our cafe, which provides not just food and drinks, but friendly faces and people to talk to. I've been told multiple times that we're literally a lifesaver. Sadly, the buildings have seen better days, and like an old car, as soon as you fix one thing, something else breaks. We had to survive for nearly 2 years without proper heating at one stage, which is not much fun when you have some of the older population with you. When it rains in the wrong direction, we have to line the entrance with buckets and sometimes even have to close completely. These plans will give us a much needed revamp, as well as having the added bonus of integrating with the sports centre next door. It also means that we'll be ready to go just as soon as the council find the funding, which will be great for both the residents of Watford and also our staff, who currently have no idea what will be happening. There has been a lot of very close work with the design team and the trustees, and they've all taken into account the needs of the community and made quite a few tweaks on our behalf. I therefore hope that you will follow the officer recommendations and grant planning permission for this fantastic project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm inviting questions for your presentation. Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. Just one follow-up, because sometimes it's included in the officer's report, but it's not here on this occasion. Could you talk us through what public consultation is taking place with the users and the community to ensure that what is we're being shown is what they want?
Yes, of course. I don't know where to start really, because we've had several consultations. The consultations for this one started off prior to COVID and have kind of morphed into what it is today. So the previous consultation company actually went out and they sat outside the chip shop, outside the local corner stores, and got things that way. We were shown some models of what we were going to have. Unfortunately, then COVID came along and kiboshed that. So we then had to redo the consultations. So we had resident sounding boards. So any residents that were interested could come along and be part of the groups. We had several open days, some of them run by the community centre. So we had people come in with, and we had post-it notes out, and we got them to all write down the things that they wanted to have included. And I know that the City Council have also had several of those kind of days and put out adverts, and it's been on social media and everything. So I think pretty much the entire of Watford and the surrounding area knows, because you say something to one person and it gets round to everybody very quickly. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Councillor, for coming to talk to us about this today. I'm a user of the sports centre, and actually I'm a regular user now, and I really like going there. But I really welcome this revamp when this happens. I think it's really exciting. Obviously, you've talked to a lot of people about this, and you've also spoken to officers, and you've been involved quite heavily. Is there anything that you're kind of hoping to have included, hoping to have, that that the community are not getting as a result of these plans? Is there anything on your wish list significant that you're not getting?
I get into trouble if I say that. Well, obviously the funding would be the number one on my wish list. I think the only thing, and I'm afraid that we're not going to get it because there's not enough space, would be a full-sized football pitch for the Watford Strollers, which is a walking football group. But otherwise, pretty much happy, very, very happy with the way it's turned out.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good to hear. I'd like to see a full-size football pitch as well. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Are there any other questions for Councillor? No, in that case, thank you very much indeed. Not till after the vote, and we'll bring you back for the final items on the agenda.
Just have to stop. Finished escort duty.
No, that's all.
So we have no other public forum statements. Debate. Councillor Hughes.
Thank you, Chair.
Hearing from James.
Yeah, on the one hand, this is a fantastic opportunity for an area in our city that I know needs some real love and care and attention. I have concerns. Thank you for answering my questions, officers, but I still have concerns about the police designing out crime officers' recommendations. And from my perspective, I want to see those recommendations included in the planning as conditions. And if I need to suggest a motion to support that, I'm very happy to put my hat in the ring and say that's what I want to see. The reasons for that are that, as I've mentioned, this is an area that needs love, care and attention. And so I think in the interest of providing as much support as we can for the community of Wamford, we need to be really thinking holistically about how we manage antisocial behaviour and crime levels in that area. And this seems like I want to say a quick win. I'm not suggesting that this is going to fix everything, but I think we need to be looking at designing out crime in every possible area. So I would like that to be included. And there's not enough disabled bays. Please put some more in.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. So to answer your point, when I do eventually propose the motion, that is the point at which you propose an amendment, if you wish to. Okay, thank you. Right, Councillor Mitchell.
What a favourite without James.
I think all of us welcome this style of development. My only concern is not a planning issue directly. It is the funding and when the funding is going to be available for this to take off. And I just wondered in a planning context whether the authority had considered a phased development here rather than it seems this massive work all at one stage. So if funding is available on a trickle process, they can do stage one and then when further funding do stage 2 or 3. Whereas at the moment it seems an all or nothing approach to this. And also in the light of the difficulties for local government funding at the moment, I'm just wondering whether, as well as a phased approach, the authority might even consider they might need to revise as we go along, that this is a situation which is evolving and this might not be the final, might be an aspiration, but might not be finally what is delivered. But I think all of us would be supportive, I hope we are, supportive of the principle of this style of development in this area as it's needed, as it's much needed as it is in many other areas of Exeter.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. I will obviously, or make the more obvious point that what we're scrutinizing, or what we're looking at is the application in front of us. The funding of it and the delivery of it are out with our remit, but I appreciate your comments. Councillor Ralston.
Thank you. I think it looks great. I can't wait to use it as well. It's, you know, with the gym and things there as well, looks like a fantastic opportunity for the city. I do share Councillor Hughes' concerns about the accessibility parking. I don't think that's enough given it's an 80, I think I read 80 space car park. I'm pretty sure that there's space for more accessible parking. I note that, and again, the electric charging points, I'm really surprised that the recommendation is only one double electric charging point for 2 cars, one of which will be an accessible parking space. That doesn't seem like enough for me, but I'm not sure if that's, we can put anything about a condition about that in particular. And then also, I think we do need to pay regard to the issues around the antisocial behaviour and those recommendations, because I think I think we should think about that and preempt it almost so that we don't have bigger issues at a later point, and follow what I've lost the page now, that's why I'm withering. Thank you very much. That we do follow those recommendations as well and put those in. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, obviously I am getting the sense from the room that we will be discussing that at a later stage. My own thoughts on the electric vehicle side of things is that if you're visiting this, your vehicle is probably going to be charged anyway. So just the fact there's only 2 EV charging points doesn't mean to say there's only going to be 2 electric vehicles there. But I know there are some smaller ones with lower charge, but they still have 56 miles on them. But that's irrelevant really to what we're doing here, I think. But we will find out later. Are you coming back if you want?
Just to say, you've not been in my car to see how long I can ride it flatlining without needing to refuel. And I imagine I would be, or I will be the same when I move to electric. So I will need charging points everywhere.
Right. Thank you. Yes. There are 6 in Little, I think. Yeah. Right. Councillor Willoughby.
Thank you, Chair. I really support this application. I've also used the gym there, and it is dire need of refurbishment. So I'm really excited about this project, especially for local residents, and the link that's going to be created between the community facilities and the sports facilities, I think is really positive. I'm also really pleased to see the changes in biodiversity to improve biodiversity. I don't think we've mentioned them yet, but they were in the report. And I think that's really positive. Broadly, I would also, I think we'll come on to this once a motion is raised, but I'd broadly be happy with looking at putting in the obligations, the comments from the designing out crime officer. My only concern, I don't know if officers would be able to answer this, is in it they said avoidance of recessed doorways and improve access control to restrict public access beyond community spaces. I don't know what sort of implications that would have for the design that is already in front of us, and I don't know whether that would require going back and a relook at the design, and I'd be concerned if that was the case. So just some clarity on that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to answer that, or?
Thank you, Councillor Miller-Bone, for that question and for actually all the other questions about safety and security. Without wanting to preempt where you want to go as a committee on that particular issue, just some points for information really, that as well as the planning application that's in front of you this evening, and all the drawings and plans that are associated with that, there is a further stage of design that we're committed to delivering and have funding for, and that will be to for a more detailed level of design. It's actually called the RIBA Stage 4A, if you're interested. What that effectively means is that there'll be a series of more detailed engineering plans, effectively, that would enable us then to go out to tender to commission the building itself, assuming that there is funding for that. So we have the funding to do the more detailed design work. We don't yet have the funding to actually deliver it. So as part of that detailed design work, there will be further opportunities to revisit all of those issues. And normally I would say in these circumstances, you can have a sort of a generic condition that allows those issues to be explored further at that more detailed stage. And if you were minded to go in that direction, and you know, that's entirely up to you as the committee, subject to our procedures, then officers would be able to draft that condition if you were so minded to give us that delegation.
Thank you, Director. Councillor Patrick, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just kind of related to that, really. I mean, what I wouldn't want to see is our city being designed purely like with things like to avoid graffiti being put on our buildings. You know, we do have to think of other considerations apart from that. So, for example, I wouldn't want to see this all being red brick just to avoid the chance of graffiti. I'd rather use things like lighting or CCTV to maybe sort of mitigate against that sort of stuff. So I think we have to be mindful as a committee that, you know, sort of design aesthetics and the look and things do matter, as well as to, you know, avoiding crime.
Thank you. Are there any more contributions to the debate? No. Right. So this is the stage where I'm proposing the motion that we accept the officer's recommendation, and looking to see first of all for a second for that. From Councillor Patrick, and then leading you, Councillor Hughes.
So I would like to present the opportunity for a motion. Thank you. Didn't have my linguistic brain on today. What am I doing?
Proposing an amendment.
Thank you. I'd like to propose an amendment to the current planning conditions that states we will include the recommendations that have been given to us by the police designing out crime officer as per paragraph 2.
See a seconder for this amendment. Councillor Pole. Okay.
Can we just go through those
Yeah, before we move into a debate on that, I would ask for some sort of clarification as to exactly what these proposals are.
So there's a list of measures there in the report. It's entirely up to you as the committee to instruct us as officers. We will of course draft a condition. So I would ask that's an element of your amendment, that you allow us to go away and draft that condition and then attach that to the decision notice, assuming that you're minded to grant planning permission in consultation with the chair, so that the wording would need to incorporate that procedural aspect. As I said earlier as well, I think that there's probably an opportunity to look at the whole building design at that later stage to consider enhanced safety and security. So a more generically worded condition that allows for that. So to be submitted, a more detailed management plan or on-site design plan that accords with the police and design out crime officers' recommendations, something like that. I say that because obviously there's a lot of detail in there that may or may not be deliverable or feasible, depending on what that more detailed design ends up with. So it's kind of to ensure really that whatever condition you're minded to suggest can actually be implemented and wouldn't require sort of the scheme to come back to you for consideration.
Right, so what I'm hearing from that is that the amendment will be to condition that review the comments of the designing out crime officer and include the recommendations as appropriate. Is that?
I think the main thing is that without trying to write the condition here this evening, that officers, you are happy for officers to go away and draft that condition in consultation with the chair, and that the condition allows for full details to be submitted at a later date of measures to improve designing out crime and safety within the building and externally. So it's sort of more of a generic condition, if you like.
Councillor Hughes.
Is it helpful, Chair, if I clarify what I'm asking the committee to consider as a motion, because I realised I was a bit fumbly in my original request. What I'm asking the committee to consider is putting into the planning conditions additional security measures as advised, including those which are on page 46 that councillors have in front of them. And for the benefit of the public gallery on the video, that includes removal of potential climbing aids, mitigation of blank elevations to deter graffiti, avoidance of recessed doorways, and improved access control to restrict public access beyond community spaces. It also includes implementation of vehicle mitigation measures to prevent unauthorised access, defining the northern space with appropriate boundary treatment to deter misuse. And as the officer very helpfully pointed out, that would include some form of barrier to make it very clear that this is no longer public space, and a consideration of removing the outdoor cafe seating when not in use to prevent unwanted congregation. I interpret that final point as being, let's have movable chairs and tables rather than benches and seating that's concreted into the ground. Is that helpful, Chair?
I'll just take advice, because again, I think that's what the director was suggesting, that we simply add that there should be an additional condition to take in the comments. If you are agreeing, committee, then that will come back to me. If I look at it and I think that it's not going far enough, then I'll then come back to you.
Maybe to help again, so we always have a reasons for conditions as well. So part of the reasoning for the condition would be to, in accordance with the comments that have been received. So that kind of captures all of that then in the reason. Then that leaves us to effectively draft a generic condition that will then, because the next stage is the critical stage, the RIBA stage 4, when all of these issues can be considered and they can submit then a plan effectively that would satisfy the condition.
Thank you, Councillor Paul.
Yeah, I just feel like it might be also sort of helpful for me to clarify that I feel like one of my main concerns about the sort of designing out crime part of it is just the sort of potential knock-on effect down the line of the financial sort of burdens of having to respond, so either I don't want to be in a position where we're either having to live with unsightly or potentially sort of inappropriate sort of graffiti, and then we don't have the financial means to sort of rectify that, or that we're constantly having to sort of deploy expensive resources to deal with incursions or whatever it is. So I think it's a sort of just a financial prudence thing really, as opposed to I think while I agree with Councillor Patrick that the design, I'm not saying I want to go back to red brick, or that a sort of diversity in the appearance of the building wouldn't be a good thing. I just also feel like there's the sort of broken window effect, and we don't want to end up with something that is a downer rather than a positive.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ralston.
Thank you, Chair. Again, whilst I am in support that we do need to do a bit more work around this, as I've already said, I feel like we need to give a little bit of allowance for variance when it comes to it, because what we don't want to do is put in a condition that says you're not allowed any recessed doorways, and then actually the plan comes back and says we can't make this building fully accessible with electric doors if we don't have a recess because of the design of the mechanics. Or I'm just thinking about the outdoor seating. Actually, I don't know if anybody has ever had a job where you have to bring outdoor furniture in and out on a daily basis throughout the year. Actually, is that then going to cause storage problems inside the building? Where do you put them? So I think, so as much as I absolutely think we do need to have some more, and I think we need to have a little bit of buffer space for a sensible plan to come forward that considers all of these points raised by the police designing out crime officer, but it might not look exactly like it has in that list. And I think if we put that list in, that might restrict some other parts that there's unintended consequences that we perhaps haven't thought about. If that makes sense.
Okay, just before I've got on my list, I've got Councillors Hughes, Atkinson and Mitchell. But before I move to the Director, I'd just like to make another point of clarification.
Again, this is just for clarification. So the comments that the police and design out crime officer made are advisory. And you've already heard that the officer's report that we've got to look at conditions in terms of the various tests that apply. So there is, I guess there's a risk that we go into a lot of detail and then find that there's a problem and that we have to come back. So on the basis that it will be part of the reason why we're doing the condition to take into account the advisory comments of the Police and Crime Commission officer, that's something just for you to consider. So that there's a condition and a reason, and they go together. And I think what you're trying to do is absolutely valid. You're trying to ensure that the ultimate design of the building, it warrants that level of safety and security.
So yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just I want to respond to some of the comments that have been made. To be clear, first of all, I very much trust the Strategic Director for Place and his team to do the right thing when it comes to wording in any kind of planning applications, and I hope you know that.
So this is not by any stretch of the imagination me wanting to dictate what you put in the planning conditions, officers. So I just want to make that point really clear. I very much respect your experience. What I am trying to do by listing those additional security measures was purely for the public gallery to understand the sort of thing we're talking about, because there might be people out there watching this now who do not have access to this documentation, who might wonder what on earth it is that I am asking to have taken into consideration and why I've raised this motion or this suggestion of amendment. Thank you. So I just want to be really clear, at no point am I asking that the amendment includes any or all of the bullet points on page 46. I listed them purely for the benefit of the public gallery. I 100% trust you, Director Collinson, to make the wording appropriate to achieve the goal that I'm asking for on this. I hope that's really clear now.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Atkinson.
I just wanted to say, Ian Collinson has actually said what I would like to say, and that I will be voting for this with less specific, would want to vote for this with less specific proposals in here. And also, we don't know, things change. We've got no funding for when this gets built. There may be actually improvements in designing out Crown that come further on the line than this. So keeping it vague to allow for all possibilities. And I'm certain that this building will be fully designed with the support of the trustees at the time it comes to development. So less is more in this case. But I've just got some thing else. I wanted to contribute, and that is in relation to disabled parking. Is that now been dealt with to everyone's satisfaction? Because I counted 12 disabled parking bays, and on the plan that I've got in my papers. And
yeah, I think there are some other, apart from the 5 that's there, I think there are others that are already in place elsewhere.
Oh, so just I just had double looked at the plan, and it's got in the plan that I can see, it's got 12 out of 80, in which case, and again, to be honest, I do think that just that it was in the additional papers of presentations as 12. We don't need here to specify the number at this particular time. We need to adequate siting of disabled bays, and I'm sure that again will be located and put in place in consultation with the trustees. So I propose that, subject to those, I don't think there's anything else, that we just move to the vote.
I do have one other speaker.
Okay, fine.
I'll take Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you, Chair. I think the officers and all of us are agreed on what the position is. And I think in layman's language, we just want full consideration to be given to the recommendations that the police have raised. And of course, their practicality, financial implications will be considered in due course. That we're not experts in that matter, but I think the feeling of the committee has been expressed. I think we've got to go for it to leave the officers with a general view forward to where they're not pinned down one way or the other. And in regard to where we are in orders of debate and constitutional issues, we are technically discussing an amendment. If the proposer and seconder of the motion are happy to accept the amendment as we have now suggested, we can then proceed just entirely to a vote without further discussion.
I'm looking at my seconder, but I'm perfectly prepared to accept this amendment, and so is the seconder as well. If there are no further contributions, we are then moving to the vote on the motion as amended. Okay, so that become the substantive, and so I'm asking for those in favour of that substantive motion, please.
That's unanimous, Chair. That has been carried as amended.
That's carried as amended. Thank you very much indeed. We're now moving on. Can we have Councillor Sebastian back, please?
Frozen today. Tell her it's a time.
Yeah, she's got it quite well.
I'm so sorry to give you bad news.
Thank you all members again. If I could bring you back to order, please. We have moved, please, ladies and gentlemen of the committee and others. Right, okay. We have moved to item 7 now, which is the list of decisions made and withdrawn applications. You have received that list, and I'm inviting comments or questions. I see Councillor Mitchell.
One very quick question, because I've never seen it before, and it's in my ward as well. On the second application in St James and Dewar, without naming it, it says the decision type was a split decision. Could somebody tell us what a split decision is? Because normally they're permitted or not permitted, but a split decision is a boxing term. I'm not sure what it is.
A split decision is one where it is part approved and part refused.
Oh, wow.
Every day is a school day, Councillor Mitchell. Are there any other comments or questions relating to the list of decisions made? Councillor Hughes.
Sorry, officers, I feel like I'm asking a lot of questions today. I'm just looking at Pennsylvania on page 70. There's quite a few HMO, well, there's at least 2 HMO decisions in there. Decision type was lawful use. Does that simply mean, well, it's not against the law, so we're just going to say yes? Because that's how it reads literally. And I'm wondering what opportunity there was for residents, because obviously I am one of the councillors for Pennsylvania Ward. What consultation was there for residents about yet more HMO planning applications being approved? Because that is something that residents are very concerned about in Pennsylvania Ward in particular.
This application was for a certificate of lawfulness. So the LPA is required to determine whether the local planning authority, as in us, excuse me, is required to determine whether something is lawful or not, as opposed to making a planning judgment which weighs up the balance of different issues as you would with a planning application. So whilst I'm not familiar with that particular application, it was a certificate of lawfulness for a proposed use as a house in multiple occupation, i.e. use class C4, so that's up to 6 people sharing the house, and a rear roof dormer. And obviously the officers determined that that would be a lawful use. And that might be because that it complies with the permitted development rights, the national permitted development rights wouldn't actually require a planning application.
Yeah, I have a follow-up question, but basically the officer saying that there are certain things that people can do to their houses, and there's nothing that we as a planning committee can do anything. But please.
Yeah, no, I totally got the gist of that. My question is more, is there anything we can do as a local planning authority to slow down the increase in houses of multiple occupation? I realise that the law states people can do what they like to their houses, but then is there anything, it's just a general, is there anything we can do as a planning authority to slow that down?
Absolutely, Councillor Hughes. So in fact, this council has just recently extended what's called the Article 4 direction area, which removes, so the effect of the Article 4 is to remove those permitted development rights in relation to HMOs, and therefore then we would, so if somebody wanted to convert a house to a HMO would then need to apply for planning permission, irrespective of the national PD right. So there's a geographical boundary to that extension. It's based on postcodes and it's based on evidence where we're aware of an increase in those HMOs. I can't say top of my head where that boundary lies in relation to that particular application, I'm afraid. But no. So, but it is all published on our website, and I said that was very recently. That order was very recently confirmed.
Thank you.
Any other questions on agenda item 7? In that case, I'm asking that this committee notes the report. There's no need for a vote on that. We have noted it. Okay, we're now moving on to item 8. This is the appeals report. So again, that's been published in advance. Are there any comments or questions relating to the appeals report? No, none on that. So therefore, I move that is put into the report. We've got our next item is the date of the next meeting. The next scheduled meeting will be on Monday, the 24th of March, 5:30, same place. I thank you all very much for your attention. Very well done. We have a meeting, a planning meeting that finished before 7 o'clock. Yeah.
That's the new standard, everybody.
That's worrying, Chair.